You are watching the Recharge Your Life online video series, and I'm your host, Phaedra Antioco. We're talking about how to free yourself from the hidden traumas of the 5Ds. And our next expert is Dr. Christina Bjorndal, and she does share about her birth history and entrance into the world and how she struggled with and overcame bipolar disorder, and now she's making a difference in the world. And we're going to be sharing about From Darkness to Light, a journey to mental wellness. But first, let me share about Dr. Christina Bjorndal. She is a naturopathic physician who is considered an authority in the treatment of mental illnesses such as depression, anxiety, bipolar disorders, and eating disorders using the physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual approach. And having overcome many mental health challenges, Dr. Chris is a gifted speaker, writer, and has shared her wellness philosophy with audience as far as Jenny McCarthy's program, as well as the International Bipolar Foundation and many other health summits and docuseries. And she is recognized as a foremost top naturopathic physician and wrote the book Beyond the Label, which is a comprehensive guide to naturopathic treatment of mental health. So please join me and welcome Dr. Christina Bjorndal. Thanks so much for joining me today, Dr. Bjorndal.
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
You know, you are, in my eyes, one of the top naturopathic physicians who really specializes in mental health. And what I appreciate about you is you have been there on your own healing journey. Would you mind sharing with the audience, so they know who we're speaking to, the challenges that you had and what you did to overcome it?
Yeah, so I've had a lot of challenges in the mental health area, and just starting in high school with an eating disorder, and then in university I developed anxiety and depression, and for that I was treated with medication, and that I took for a few months, and then I found myself in a place that I'd never been before, which was spiraling out of control into a psychotic state. And then I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 1. And the thing is, I did not accept that diagnosis. What I did with it is I stuffed it deep down inside and didn't want anybody to know about it. And I continued just marching on in the world, for the most part, wearing this mask that I'm okay on the outside, but I'm actually not doing that great on the inside. And I started working, and I'm an overachiever, so I just continued climbing this corporate ladder. But the real turning point for me was that's been 25 years ago now, but I had a suicide attempt that left me in a coma with kidney failure. And I was on dialysis and told that I would need a kidney transplant. And I really wasn't happy when I opened my eyes and was still here. But you know, here I am. You know the phrase there. I'm here despite my best efforts. But I realized at that point that I needed to figure out another way to navigate this journey that I was on, because the way that I was doing it up until that point, which was basically living in shame and stigma and not liking myself and not liking these aspects of myself, was not serving me very well. And I was given a book to read by Marianne Williamson called A Return to Love, which many might be aware of. And there's a passage in that book on surrender, which goes along these lines, that surrender is not about breaking out of anything. Instead, it's a gentle melting into who we really are. And so we let down our armor, and we realize that all that God needs is just one sincere, surrendered moment when love matters more than anything. And so I realized, that was part of the problem. I didn't love myself at all. And so for the past 25 years, that's been the journey that I've been on, is trying to learn how to love and accept not just the parts of myself that I like, but the parts of myself that I don't like. And that society may not like, because this bipolar label it was a tough one for me. And so anyway, I ended up making a career change, and now I went back to high school when I was 33 to then go on to take the sciences, to then go on to naturopathic school. And so here I am, and now I specialize primarily in helping people regain their mental health.
Now, if
And
I were to take you back to your earlier life as a child, were there traumas in there or any defining moments that you feel triggered you or put these thoughts in your head or kind of put you on that path where you didn't love yourself enough or believe in yourself enough that you feel open to sharing about?
yeah, absolutely. And the answer is yes. So I'm adopted.
Oh,
And so that early childhood trauma, first of all, I think that what I want people to understand is when you're in utero, you are being the neurological and emotional imprinting starts when you're in utero. And depending on the state of your biological mother, if she was stressed, and just by the fact that I was given up for adoption, any woman who has to make that decision is a stressed individual. So there's going to be more cortisol flowing through her body than in a woman who has a planned pregnancy. So I kind of came out of the womb anxious and very sensitive already.
yeah.
Yeah, and then the way that I learned that I was adopted, I processed the word to mean that I was with my parents temporarily, and that somebody was going to come to get me. And so I was always waiting,
Yeah,
right?
like the
Always.
subconscious.
Yes. Oh, yes. So the subconscious imprinting for me, like these beliefs I've had to rewire are, again, I'm not wanted, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable. I mean, I've got a whole page listed in my book Beyond the Label about, these core beliefs of that I've had to rewire. Yeah.
Wow. So again, this is just an example. Why are you doing about hidden traumas? It's like these are our life circumstances and they do shape us. And here you are. Like I love that you did point that out. And it's almost beyond my level of comprehension because it's like life can be so hard enough for me to like go all the way back into utero, or even now talking about transgenerational trauma
Yeah.
across many generations. And it's almost too much for my mind to comprehend, but science is improving and really looking at these factors of impacting our mental health, our beliefs about ourselves, and really just how our nervous systems are wired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Christiane Northrup says that we're the culmination of the 7 generations that have gone before us. So when you think about that, I mean, it's really impactful.
Yes.
But I think the positive piece about this, if there has been something that has been a negative imprint, for example, the key I think to understand is that in the present moment, with awareness, we can learn to change that conversation. And that's this field of neuroplasticity. And also epigenetics can play a role in this too, which means that genes load the gun, but lifestyle pulls the trigger. So even though there might be this imprinting that has happened, it doesn't have to be your destiny. We can create change in the present moment through this compassionate inquiry with ourselves. So I think that's a really important piece of the work that I do with people is changing this dialogue that happens within you. So you want to, whenever you come across somebody who is overachieving, you want to be flagging in the back of your mind, are they compensating for something? A lot of times, so in my case, I overcompensated for this lack of that I felt within. So overcompensated by getting accolades, winning awards, having accomplishments, to have this outside approval to fill this hole within me. And that that can serve people well. I mean, it served me.
It's a deep one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it served me well, but then I crashed and burned, right? Because you can only burn the candle at both ends before the flame runs out and you burn yourself out. So
Right.
you really want to be learning how to value yourself from the inside, not needing to have these outside validations for yourself.
Exactly. And we are talking about in this series how to recharge your life. And this is an underlying theme that's happening, I see, is first, we really need to have awareness. And awareness to our story, who we are, the beliefs that we have, and sometimes maybe making up that, yeah, this is just a story I'm telling myself. or this is a program that's running me. But here you are, you were helpless, suicidal, in a coma, and now you've pulled yourself through and you're a naturopathic physician now and helping people. And it just shows as a clear living proof example right now that anything is possible, that you can achieve it.
Yes.
With the right
Yes.
support, with the right help, the right feeling safe in your body. And I know you have an amazing book out. I love your book on the label, 10 Steps to Improve Your Mental Health with Naturopathic Medicine. But you do speak of a four-part, like four aspects of health that need to be addressed. And that's what I love about you, is you're not just testing neurotransmitters, or you're really looking at all aspects of a person's life. And that's what's important to help break free from this pain.
Mm-hmm.
So share
Mm-hmm.
with
Yeah.
us your four aspects of health that you really look at with your patients.
Yeah, so that's sort of a high level viewpoint. So those four aspects are, first of all, the physical level, and then the mental, the emotional, and the spiritual. So recognizing that there's more to us than just that physical level. And that's where I started on this road to recovery. So yes, I had that I'll call it that spiritual crisis, where I realized that there's got to be more to navigating my mental health than just pharmaceutical medications. But so that started me on the journey of figuring out how to navigate and support myself using natural
Okay.
supplementation. And that's where I started. But eventually I bumped up against myself. I bumped up against these core beliefs, these shadow beliefs, these limiting beliefs. I bumped up against my emotions and my reactions and my triggers. And so that's why I think it's important to not only just look at the physical, but I just want to be clear that we do need to get that foundation in place. But I think if that's all you do, then I think you're doing a disservice, I don't believe you're going to get to true healing until we then look at your thoughts and your emotions and this mental, emotional, and spiritual side. So those are the four aspects I think that need to be addressed as a whole.
Okay, so give me an example. If you have an example of a patient that you've helped, because I know you're extremely busy. Everyone wants to get in to see you. Where do you start with the person? Because I know it is about, they're gonna do my blood labs and they're gonna see if my gut's healthy and maybe that's contributing. How does that look when someone comes to work with you?
Yeah. So I do start with putting in place this physical piece, right? So taking a look at the diet and people just want people to understand that a lot of the neurotransmitters and the hormones that you make need to be built from nutritional precursors, right? So this is really important to get the diet right. So I put into place some building blocks there, but then I'm starting to teach them in that first visit. I'm really listening to how they're speaking and taking their case, and start to teach them how to manage their mind so they're not at the mercy of it. Exactly. So the word can't, for example, is a lot of patients say, I can't do this, I can't do that. And I just say to them, look, you're not going to get to can by telling yourself that you can't. So we need to start taking a look at the conversation that you're having with yourself. A key question that I ask all of them, everybody that I see, is on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you love yourself? And if you're listening to that now, just, take the time to answer that for yourself. And, if your sense of self, your self-esteem, your self-worth is low, then that is really what we need to work on. No amount of supplements is necessarily going to help fix that.
Yeah.
Right.
That's very, very important to hear.
Yeah. So really where I start with is this inquiry in terms of paying attention to, as you said, awareness. So what is the conversation that's going on between your ears? Are you criticizing yourself all day long, or are you being kind to yourself, compassionate to yourself? So who has the stage for the most part? And I know for myself, when I was struggling, I was beating myself up all day long. This voice in the head was, oh my gosh, just exhausting. Yeah.
Do you have any tricks? Because I know I do get into that. I am not perfect and I have my stressors, and I don't know if it's hormonal. You can sit there and look for why, but it's like killing yourself. It's beating yourself up. Do you have any tricks that you teach your clients or patients to shift out of that?
Yeah. So the framework I use, it's called So to keep it short, it's called the 4 R's. In the book, it's called the 7 R's of working with problematic thoughts, but really the 4 R's is what you need. So the first piece is just what we said. We've got to pay attention and recognize what is going on. What are you thinking? And as soon as you recognize that you're in a bad neighborhood, so to speak, you're having this negative conversation with yourself, that's when you want to refrain. That's the second R, from following that train of thought any further. And the reason why this is so important is this is the work of psychoneuroimmunology. So what we want to understand here is your thoughts create neuropeptides, and then the neuropeptides affect the hormones that you produce, and then the hormones you produce affect how you feel. So it's this little bit of a chicken and an egg problem that we have going on here. So the third R is so first of all, recognize and then refrain. And then the third R is to relax into the breath. So into the present moment. And I teach people the breathing exercise that I'd like them to do. And we can do that here.
Yeah, I'd love for you to share.
Okay. So if people are listening, I just get you to put your right hand on your belly button and your left hand on your heart. And first of all, before I explain it, I just want you to understand that most people are living right here from the neck up. Right? Yeah. And we're discounting our body. Mm-hmm. And then that results in this thought triggering an emotion, which triggers a thought. And then we can go round and round and stay stuck in this negative spiral. And similarly, most people are just breathing with the top little tops of their lungs, but your lungs go all the way down to your diaphragm. And your diaphragm, when it pulls down and your lungs inflate, if you're taking a proper diaphragmatic breath, sitting right underneath your diaphragm is your adrenal glands. And it's your adrenal glands that respond to these negative thoughts that we think by producing this hormone that people have heard of called cortisol, which keeps us stuck in either fight, flight, or freeze. Mm-hmm. So the beauty of this is you're actually physiologically designed to calm yourself down. But the thing is, not very many people take the time to do it.
Right?
So the other piece around the hands is just from Chinese medicine, understanding that everything is in Chinese medicine is divided into yin and yang, and the Chinese medicine symbol represents balance. Mm-hmm. So we're trying to achieve balance in the body. So the right side of your body is actually the yang side. Your belly button is a yin area. So you're connecting and balancing yin and yang. And where your right hand is also the first and second chakras in Ayurvedic medicine, which have to do with your sense of rootedness, security, belonging in the world. So your belly button represents when you were connected in the womb to your mother, and is this connection through to this lineage, the 7 generations. The left side of your body is the yin side, and we connect that with the heart, which is a yang organ to balance the yin and yang. This is also the 4th chakra in Ayurvedic medicine, which has to do with the meeting of the mind and the spirit. I'd like your hands to be here to also illustrate that there's more serotonin receptors between these two hands than there is in your brain. And there's more electrical activity happening in your heart than there is in your brain. And the third reason for your hands here is for you to feel that diaphragmatic breath. So when you're inhaling, you're filling in, breathing in through your nose, and you're inflating like a balloon into your belly. So that hand has got to move. Now, when I was first taught this, I felt so constricted right at my solar plexus. Like I literally felt like I could not, like it was blocked. And so if that's you, if you feel that way, just stick with it. And over time, it will shift. So when we breathe, I ask people to focus on something in nature, and to either watch a cloud moving in the sky or the leaves swaying on a tree. And the reason for this is your mind is a really busy place. And what we're trying to do is get you to this place of stillness. And if you give your mind a job to do, it is usually up for the task. So it's like, oh, okay, you want me to focus on the leaves right now? Okay, great. I'll focus on the leaves. So then that just gives your physiology a little bit of a reprieve from the onslaught of all these thoughts that are causing this whole cortisol spike. Is that making sense?
Yes, and this is the work that I do. I do somatic experiencing to help regulate nervous systems. So bringing them into their bodies and in present moment, so you realize the tiger isn't chasing you.
That's right.
And I
Exactly.
have little tricks that I use. Let me show. I don't know if you've seen these, if these are big in Canada. They're called
No.
squishies and they feel heavenly. I just like you squeeze it and you almost, I have to buy this. It feels so good. And it's good for getting in touch with present moment and looking at the texture, looking at the colors, the feel of it,
Yeah,
orienting to sound in the environment.
that's
And
right.
it's just for that moment, if you're really, because I know I get it sometimes where my clients with my PTSD, I could be really hard to get in my body. And I
Yeah,
like that you're explaining this. Your right hand does this and your left hand does that because it gives me something to do
right.
and get
Yeah.
out of that pinball machine that's going off in my head.
Yes. Well, and the thing is, I mean, there's no right or wrong really,
Right.
right? If you
It's
want to
taking
breathe,
it
but I think the key is to take the breath, right? The key is to
yeah.
take the breath. So we'll just pause here and we'll just take a deep breath in together. So we'll just breathe in through our nose and then you exhale. So I'm usually doing, a couple of breaths with patients and then usually finishing with when you're doing that inhale, like just breathing in what it is that you need, whether it's peace, calmness, present mindedness, joy, love, and just exhaling what it is that you need to let go of. So when you've managed to catch yourself, right? You've recognized, you've refrained, you've relaxed into the breath, you've done, hopefully 3 deep breaths at least. Then the next R is to resolve that you have to repeat this process. Okay, this is not just a one-time thing. This repatterning and retraining of your mind, it's like you're going to the gym. If you want to have a toned bicep, you can't just lift 1 5-pound weight, right? You got to repeat this process, right? And then the fifth R that I think is important here is this rephrase. So this is cognitive behavioral therapy. So basically, I mean, a sort of a side cut version of cognitive behavioral therapy. But basically, I ask people to take that thought they recognized. So say it's, I am unworthy. So we want to replace that with a positive thought. And this is where I was stuck for so many years. And I think this is why I why I struggled for about 15 years before I actually got help or got better, was because I was resistant to this idea, which is change your thoughts, change your life. Because I felt like you were implying, like when you said that to me, if you were my friend, I felt like you were implying that I was causing my anxiety and my depression and my struggles intentionally. And now that I'm on the other side, and I understand this psychoneuroimmunology that I explained, that again, it's your thoughts create the neuropeptides, which then affect the hormones, which then affect how you feel.
Yeah.
So I was stuck in the mindset that I had to believe the thought.
Oh, that's big.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you don't have to believe the thought. You just have to be aware of this physiological cascade that I'm referring to. And if people want more explanation to that, just, I have a video that I created that explains it as well. Which I think is really helpful. So for me, because going from I am unworthy to I am worthy, I felt like, I was spraying whipping cream on a pile of bologna. I didn't believe that I was worthy. So how can I say that I'm worthy? So if you're like me, then, and that's a struggle for you, then just go neutral, right? You would just say, the rephrase would be, I am. And no descriptive label after that, just I am. And that's going to be a very neutral response physiologically within your body. But I would encourage you to say the opposite. Don't worry about whether you believe it or not. Just say it, because you will feel differently over time, and that's the key. And then eventually you will believe it. And I think you end up believing it because you feel differently, right?
I like to put it in my calendar on a daily basis of a reminder, and it'll pop up and, oh, okay, yeah, let me check in. And you can set reminders in your phone or your
Yes,
iPad to pop up every day at a certain time. So thank you for sharing that, because it is a muscle that you need to build.
You need to build. And some of these wounds are deep within us.
And
right?
that's what we're talking about, these hidden traumas. And when I had my car accident, it was kind of the catalyst for such major growth, because I had some traumas, but it really just wiped me out, and I
Yeah.
had to rebuild. And I learned that the body really does hold on to trauma. I don't remember the car accident, but my body did. And I think
Mm.
the same is, I deal with people who maybe they had a traumatic birth into
Yeah.
the world, and that can affect your perception of the world. And maybe your parents had a terrible divorce, and how do you cope, and how did your nervous system handle that when you were a child? So these are all good things to look at.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's so much to this, and I think that we make meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we make meaning when
Yeah.
it's not the correct meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the case of divorce, I think a lot of times, we make meaning when there doesn't need to be meaning made. And so you want to be questioning yourself, and I think checking in with some of these assumptions that we might be making about our lives, or the stories that we're telling ourselves. That, can you write a different story? Can you tell yourself a different, a different just set of circumstances that maybe your perception wasn't actually, maybe it was skewed, perhaps, who knows. But I think for me, it's been really important to really look at these beliefs that I hold. And most thoughts, when you examine them under the lens of truth, they're not true.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, I mean, mostly these negative thoughts. And so then you have to ask, well, why am I, how are they serving me, and why am I thinking them?
I literally, right here on my desk, have a book. Let me pull it out. And this woman really changed me. And she had her
Yeah,
own.
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, Byron Katie. Yeah.
Yeah, and you guys can check her work out too. And I mean, she has the book, and you can just inquiry, and it asks all these questions. Is it true? Can you absolutely know it's true?
Yeah.
And it takes some work, but it's like, whoa, mind-boggling, because she lived years in depression.
Yeah.
And one day just woke up, just like Eckhart Tolle.
Yeah. Yeah. So her book is called Loving What Is.
Yep.
And basically that's exactly who I was referencing. So basically, yeah, her line of questioning is it true? Like, is that thought you're thinking like true 100% without a doubt? Is it true that you're, I'll use the I'm unworthy example. Well, no, it's not true. Obviously, I wouldn't have won awards, or I wouldn't have done if I was unworthy. Truly, I wouldn't have. Right. So then how do you feel? The way I summarize it is, how do you feel when you think that thought? How do you feel when you don't think that thought? Then which thought are you going to think?
Right. That's the best part. Like, who would you be without that thought? It's
Yeah.
Even if I'm walking and I'm freezing cold, who would
Yes.
I be without that thought? And my body just goes neutral without judging it. So yeah, this is great. This is the power of the mind. And one thing I've been working on, because my head can go towards the negative, is okay, today I'm going to start looking at all the reasons that show me I'm good enough.
Yes.
Okay, I have these people supporting me. Dr. Chris is willing to do this interview, and so it's just changing the brain, instead of looking for all that's wrong, but looking for what's good, what's positive, what you feel valued with.
Yes. Debbie Ford, who's another wonderful spiritual teacher who's passed away, but she would say, are you looking for what's right, or are you looking for what's wrong? And how are you orienting yourself? And a lot of us are looking for what's wrong. We're not looking for what's right. And a great way, I think, to move into that is to start your day with gratitude. Mm-hmm. So the minute your eyes open, listen, I used to close my eyes at night and pray in my sleep that I would not wake up in the morning. Mm-hmm. And then when I opened my eyes in the morning, I would be like, oh God, I've got I'm here, like I'm still here. I've got another day. Like, how am I going to get through this day? And I mean, it's just, I was bookending my day, the end and the beginning, on negativity. Mm-hmm. And so I shifted to doing gratitude and morning pages, which is the work of Julia Cameron and The Artist's Way, which is another wonderful resource. And just starting with gratitude when I open my eyes. So it's powerful. And this is what neuroplasticity is about, which is how you can change your brain patterning. You are not fixed. Like, your brain is not a lump of cement. It's not solid.
You are not fixed. It can change.
It can be malleable. Yeah.
And maybe you're getting this inspiration with hearing this, because thank you so much for all that you're sharing. It's really impactful, because it's hard to be depressed and stuck and filled with anxiety and ruminating. And if you
Yeah.
guys can just remember these little steps Dr. Chris is teaching, that would be really powerful.
Well, and I think, the other thing is if you are struggling with your mental health, I just like really I have been there. I have been there. And I really think there's an explanation for what you're going through and it can be found in one or more of the 10 steps that I talk about in Beyond the Label. So it's just really a matter of taking stock and in some cases, and in my case, I had to work on all 10 of the steps I talk about.
Mhm.
But now that I've worked on all of them, I am no longer, suffering. So that's my hope for you and everyone who's listening is that you know that there's a way to freedom here and you do not have to be left suffering.
Mhm.
So
Good. And we've addressed kind of the mental game because it is a mindset, managing your mind. Let's talk about how you help people support the physical body.
yeah. Yeah. So those three main areas on the physical level is diet and supplementation, sleep, and then managing, and then the exercise piece and managing stress is another piece of that puzzle. So those are the four pillars, so to speak, of your physical platform. And the diet piece, as I said at the beginning, you have to understand that so first of all, there's three macro systems in you. So you have your neurotransmitters, your neuroendocrine system or your hormonal system, and then your organs of detoxification and your immune system. So mental health concerns can lie in any one of those three macro systems, if not all three of those. And so it's a matter of, perhaps doing testing or blood work or figuring out which macro systems we need to sort out. So I'll give you an example. Just in my own case, I would be depressed for the entire month. And eventually, when I started the nutritional protocol to support my neurotransmitters, I got better for 2 weeks of the month. But the other 2 weeks of the month, I wasn't doing so great. So that I didn't have any medical knowledge at that time, but now we know, or I know, okay, well, that's my hormones are
Hormones.
out of whack. Pardon?
Hormones, yeah.
Yeah, hormones, right?
But I have a
So
question. Is hormones also, is that going to be a contributing factor for women post-menopausal?
mhm.
Because I think a lot of women over menopause age, they're not as many, my patients are not getting the blood labs done to look at hormones or addressing them.
I know. I have a
Doctors
patient.
just aren't.
Yeah, and what happens, I had a patient just the other day, and both her estrogen and progesterone is bottom of the barrel. And yes, she's postmenopausal, and yes, those hormones are going to be low, but she's not getting better, having been on 4 antidepressants over the last year with her medical doctor. And finally, when I saw her, I said, "Has anyone checked your hormones?" And they're non-existent. So we need to do some support there because what you want to understand is every hormone in the body, whether it's thyroid,
Mhm.
estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, cortisol, DHEA, they all have mental health symptoms when they're out of balance. So we want to be checking these hormones. And I I think that it's a real tragedy how women are being managed in the postmenopausal phase of their lives.
Yeah.
So a lot of women get put on antidepressants. And from
Mhm.
a root cause, it's the hormones that need to be supported.
Okay. And one thing that I tell people to do is just to monitor your cycle. They have great apps that are free, and
Yeah.
you can just monitor your cycle. And then there's little calendars and journals, and you can say, oh, I'm really anxious this time of the month or this day out of my cycle. And I think that's really important to journal about it. So
Yes.
thank you for pulling that out. So if you don't mind sharing, if you were to test hormones, which ones would you run? Just so people have an idea of what to ask their physicians for.
Yeah. So thyroid hormones, so TSH, free T3, free T4. You also want to be looking for an antibody called anti-TPO, thyroid peroxidase, because a lot of people have something called Hashimoto's and
Yeah.
they don't know about that. So that's more of an autoimmune piece of the thyroid puzzle. And then so estrogen, progesterone, DHEA, cortisol, and testosterone.
Okay.
Those are the main ones. Now, there's 3 ways to measure hormones: blood, urine, and saliva. There's different ways, but I think starting with blood is a good place to start.
Mhm.
If your results aren't conclusive, then you may want to proceed on to do something more specific, because understand that with blood tests, your hormones aren't acting in the bloodstream, so that's just where they're circulating. but
Ah,
they act when they bind to a receptor of a cell. And
hmm,
so that's where the urine or saliva is a tissue representation.
okay.
Um, yeah, but you can still get some benefit for sure. Just another comment about blood work is, so this is a bit of a frustration for a lot of functional medicine naturopathic clinicians, is that, so we'll just use thyroid as an example. So here, the reference range for TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, is 0.2 to 4.
Okay.
So, but that's not, so if you're at 3.99, that's not optimal, right? To
Oh,
be zero point 0.01 below the reference, the outside end of that reference range. So we're always looking at where you are within that reference range and is it optimal or not,
mhm.
right? So another example is iron. A lot of people can have low iron, which can contribute to depression and fatigue and energy problems. The reference range for the storage form of iron, which is ferritin, is 12 to 300. And again, if you're at 13, your doctor's going to tell you you're fine. But again, it's not optimal to be at the low end like that, because over time, you're not going to be at 13, probably. You may fall under. So we want to prevent that. That's the whole reason we're in preventative medicine. So it's not just about your doctor telling you you're normal, because we hear that all the time. Oh, my labs are normal. But are they optimal?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, I
chances
was
are,
normal with thyroid T3. I was normal, but I was low normal. The doctor put me on a supplement. It was like life changing. But I
right.
had to go through 4 other doctors doing labs where they didn't feel that it was necessary. So it is something, and sometimes we have to pay out of pocket. And I know a lot of the urine tests and the
Yeah.
saliva tests do cost money, but they do show valuable information.
And here's the thing, I wrote this blog called, what price are you going to put on your health?
Yeah.
I mean, really, I get it. I get that it's difficult for some people, and I know that finances can be an issue, but at the end of the day, all you really do have is your health.
Mhm.
And so, what the Dalai Lama says, right? So, health truly is the greatest wealth. So invest in your health. Invest on the inside of your body more than you are the outside of your body. And you think about all the things we do for the outside of our body, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to invest in your health. For me, it's been so important to do that.
Well, you have 2 books. You're booked out in your practice. You're making a difference in the world. You've got a group program you're running, and I love that because that's what I'm good at pain and trauma. I've been there, and I've been in their shoes. You've been in these people's who are watching shoes, and you are rocking it out because that's what it is. It's like getting out of fight or flight, feeling safe in your body. But I think the ultimate is to be creative and have joy and laughter and imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are driving in the car just singing to the songs on the radio and you feel so good, what would you pay for that? And I've had those moments where I got my gut health cleared up and I had to pay for it, but it was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yes.
But I know that there's a way, and I appreciate you sharing. Like, yes, look at hormones.
Yeah.
Look at
Yeah.
hormones. So what else can we look at?
Yeah, and so the diet piece is really important, right? So you want to understand that everything you put in your body informs your body in one way or another. So what is the message that you're sending? And understand that in order for certain neurotransmitter pathways to work, they have to have nutritional cofactors that support the conversion to that neurotransmitter. So I'll use tryptophan as an example, or serotonin as an example. So serotonin is one of the main neurotransmitters that most people are aware of that's involved in mental health. And it is derived from an essential amino acid. So the key word there is essential, which means you cannot make it. No human being has the ability to make tryptophan within the cells of our body. It has to come from the outside, from our diet. And if you're deficient in that, you're not going to make serotonin. And in order for tryptophan to get to serotonin, it has to be converted along a few steps. These enzymatic pathways in the body. And if you don't have the nutritional cofactors there, you're not going to get there. So this was super, super important to me, or a really huge key to my recovery. So I was started off on supplements.
Mhm.
Basically, I was prescribed niacinamide, I was prescribed B vitamins, vitamin C, zinc, omega-3s, iron, and magnesium. So, and I got better. Like I had my first year when I at that time I was taking 5 psychotropic meds, and I was still experiencing depression and anxiety on those medications.
That's why
Right?
you got to look at this physical piece and your
Yeah.
hormones and what you're eating. Yeah.
So then I started all the supplements,
Mm-hmm.
took them at the same time with all the medications. And this is another really, really important point for people. You have to build in that nutritional piece before you taper off medications with your doctor. If you just taper and you don't change anything from the nutritional front, you may end up back in the pit of depression again. I mean, that's what happened to me. I was on and off these medications for 15 years. And every time I went off them, I ended right back in the bottom of the barrel, usually attempting suicide. Wow. And the reason is, well, first of all, nobody had worked on my thoughts. Nobody had worked on any of that other spiritual side, but nobody had asked me, not one doctor ever asked me what was I eating. Not even Dr. Hoffer, who I went to see. But he put me on the supplements, and I got better. But when I went to naturopathic school, we analyzed our diets. The only essential amino acid I was deficient in was tryptophan. So I was shocked.
Diet. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
This is all news to me about tryptophan. I thought somehow we had produced it.
No.
So what are the good foods to eat, or which ones should we avoid?
Yeah. So I usually focus on actually increasing the good foods. So basically tryptophan forming foods. So you want to think protein. So, and I had been a vegetarian, right? And there had been not a lot of vegetables in my vegetarian diet. So basically I was a carbitarian, right? Pasta, potatoes. I mean, I was and I thought it was healthy. Like it was just, my concept of health has shifted so much. But anyway, so think protein, so turkey, chicken, beef. And so for people who are vegetarians, then you want to think avocados, cashews, peanuts, oatmeal, quinoa. And the other important foods are foods that are high in B6 and magnesium. So the other book I've written is The Essential Diet, Eating for Mental Health. And so it's just like it's not really a book, it's more of it's a guide. So it's a 2-week menu plan and shopping lists and nutritional analysis and just tips to help you make diet changes. Because a big piece that we should avoid is sugar. Sugar's
Why? Ice cream makes me feel so good. Sugary coffees, that everyone goes to, that famous coffee place. Yes. The lines are jam-packed.
I know. We're all sugar addicts, I think, to some degree. But I'm going to be, I'm the last naturopathic doctor in the world is ever going to tell you never to have a piece of good quality dark chocolate ever again in your life. To me, it's about balance, because I have had an eating disorder. So for me, it's more about moderation and, but being mindful, right? Being mindful.
Yeah, we had an expert say, instead of cheat days, I say celebration days.
Right.
Just changing the mindset around it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what does sugar do in our body? Like, why is it bad for us?
Well, it's very inflammatory, for one thing. Another thing is just the way that it spikes those blood sugar levels and then causes you to crash. Okay. So yeah, it's just in terms of, it's just like you're injecting yourself with jet fuel, right? And so you're just, your body and it's overwhelming to your system, and it's more that the quantity of sugar that is in things, that's the problem. And so
number to be under per
day. People should watch on YouTube. There's a great little documentary called The Secrets of Sugar. So you want to start by, first of all, paying attention to how many grams a day you're consuming. Okay. And a goal to shoot for would be less than 36 grams per day for yourself. So if you start looking at things that are in cans, bags, boxes, containers, anything you're taking out of something, look at the grams per sugar. And to put this in context, 4 grams equals 1 teaspoon.
Wow.
So,
okay.
So for example, I was giving my son this, it was organic yogurt, but it was vanilla. And there was 24 grams in a quarter cup.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. That's 6 teaspoons.
Wow.
Right? So look at your cereal boxes, look at these things. And what manufacturers have done, if they're a little bit sneaky, first you want to understand that our food products are manipulated by 3 ingredients, right? Sugar, fat, and salt. What they've done, like cereal manufacturers did, is they upped the sugar, but they decreased the portion size.
Oh, they trick you. So look at the portion size then.
Yeah. So in half a cup, how many grams of sugar, or whatever the portion size is, and challenge yourself to see if you can have less than 36 grams, which is still 9 teaspoons. But if you're starting your day with 6, that's only 3 that you've got left for the rest of the day.
Okay, what about a big glass of orange juice in the morning? Could that be harmful as far as like a juice sugar?
Yeah, it is. I would rather people eat the fruit themselves, or have some of the sugar, have some of the orange juice, but just a quarter of a cup, and then dilute it with water.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just another side note that I have learned through doing all these interviews, I've learned so much. And I think it was Dr. Anna Kabeka. And she had a blood sugar monitor. And she had talked about how she went and had French fries with her daughter and how much her blood sugar spiked. And so I got a glucometer and I've been measuring my blood sugar. And there was one day, it was like 2 p.m. I hadn't eaten. I had such anxiety in my chest. But as soon as I ate, I felt so much better. And I don't think a lot of people are looking at whether, because intermittent fasting, you should be intermittent fasting. And then people are pushing not eating. And then that could spike the mood as well, right? I just want to bring light to this.
Yeah, absolutely. That's
attack,
Yeah, absolutely. You do. That's one of the first things you want to be, when you're checking in with yourself with how you're feeling, is you then want to be asking, well, if you're not feeling great, well, then when was the last time you ate? Right? It's a big thing. And then the type 2 diabetes is such an epidemic now. I mean, it's the 4th leading cause of death in Canada, probably in the United States as well. And it is a totally preventable disease. I mean, it is a disease of lifestyle. So that's the other reason why I really want to have people reducing the amount of sugar that's in their diets. Yeah.
Okay. Any other foods?
Well, basically, you're just wanting to make sure that as much of your plate is, or half of your plate at least, is some form of vegetable. And then the rest, the other quarter, is a protein, that whether it's vegetarian or carnivore, and then having a small complex carb, that's whether it's brown rice or quinoa or something that you enjoy. I think that we've gotten really off track with nutrition, and it doesn't have to be that confusing. I think if you're just shopping the perimeter of the store primarily, that's the best. That's where the quality food is. And taking the time to cook. I mean, Michael Pollan, who's another person who I really admire, he has written in defense of food: eat food, mostly plants, not too much, right? So Dr. Terry Walls, who's another inspirational person, she talks about having, in her protocol, having 3 cups of colored vegetables, 3 cups of sulfur-rich vegetables, and 3 cups of greens per day. And she also challenges people to eat 200 different plant species in a year, which is, when we think about it, that's something different pretty much every second day. So are you getting that variety? So don't let it be too confusing, but see, start asking yourself, is what I'm about to eat, what kind of messages is it going to send my body? And how close to nature is it? So, French fries and chips and all these processed foods, they're not very close to nature.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Yeah. So kind of eliminating sugar, try to stay under 36 grams a day, just starting to read the labels.
Yeah.
And then looking at sleep, what is the latest on how many hours you should be getting? Do you study this?
Well, yeah. I mean, I think because I work with bipolar disorder, for me, this is a really important piece of the puzzle, is to make sure that in order to prevent mania, you really need to be getting sleep. So my preference for people is minimum 7 hours, but ultimately you're going to know what works best for your body. But I think the ideal is 7 to 9 hours. If you wake up rested in the morning, you open your eyes, you can get out of bed, you don't need to hit yourself with 5 espressos and and the sugar hit. That's another piece under the nutrition side is what are the liquids that people are consuming. There's lots of caffeinated beverages and pops and just
All of it,
artificial.
tons of carbs and sugars in that. I definitely look at that.
Yeah, and people just aren't drinking just enough of water, right? So remember that you're 70% water, so you need to be making sure that 70% of what you drink should be water. So a lot of people are sacrificing their sleep with, again, social media, being on computers, just having these screen times when they really shouldn't be. And going back to Michael Pollan, what he said is somehow over the last 20 years, we've given up cooking, and we've given up the 2 hours of our day to screen time.
Yeah.
And what we've sacrificed in that 2 hours is exercise and cooking and community time.
True.
Yeah. So I would say if you're not sleeping, if you have difficulty falling asleep or difficulty staying asleep or difficulty getting out of bed, that these are things that can be addressed actually with the diet, with diet changes, but perhaps supplementation might be helpful as well. And just really making sure, like, I really protect my sleep. It's a super important piece of health. And I think it doesn't get the stage that it deserves, the recognition, the importance of it that it deserves. So
good. Well, I'm so glad that you're highlighting it. And one of the things that your free gift today, which I really love, is just a step in forgiveness. Because I think that needs to forgive ourselves, forgive those who have harmed us, to heal that. But you also talk about the importance of following your intuition and your heart.
Right.
And that is a huge piece of trusting yourself. So let's speak about how to get in touch with the intuition and heart. Because sometimes that mind can be so strong, overpowering. And when I'm working with people, my hands are on their bodies, I can tell the thoughts they're making them clench. Their muscles will literally tighten up under my hands.
Yeah.
So if we can pause, go into intuition, get in touch with inside the heart.
Are you okay to do a little exercise?
Sure.
Okay. So, and for those that are listening, just do this along with us. So I'll get you to put your hands on your heart.
Okay.
And maybe, if you're comfortable, just closing your eyes and just taking a breath in and just breathing in. And so I'm just going to ask you a few questions, and I'll get you to repeat the question and then the answer. The first one is more of a statement, which is, heart, show me where you are.
Heart, show me where you are.
And then just pay attention to what you notice, whether a word comes to you, color, feeling, a sensation. It could be nothing, and that's fine too. But just share with us.
It's just like, I'm getting some attention.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Heart, will you ever lie to me? Yes or no?
Heart, will you ever lie to me? Yes or no? No.
And heart, will you tell me the truth? Yes or no?
Heart, will you tell me the truth? Yes or no? Yes.
And heart, have I always followed you? Yes or no?
Heart, have I always followed you? Yes or no? No.
No. Heart, how do you feel when you hear I haven't always followed you?
Heart, how do you feel when I haven't always followed you? I'm here for you, but I wish you'd really start following me.
Okay. So heart, why do you wish I'd really start following you?
Heart, why do you wish I'd really start following you? I will guide you the right way.
I will guide you the right way. Heart, can you help me forgive myself for not always following you?
Heart, can you help me forgive myself for not always following you? Yes.
And heart, can you help me forgive myself for not always following you?
Heart, can you help me forgive myself for not always following you? Yes.
And last question, heart, is it possible that you are God or grace or my intuition dwelling within?
Heart, is it possible that you are God, grace, or intuition dwelling within? Yes.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you for being willing to do that.
Thank
So
you.
here's the quote that I want to, people to think about, which is the heart must usher the mind into the zone of revelation. So this is by Joseph Campbell. So we need to use our heart to figure out how we want to be navigating this life, and the mind to then to do all the how-tos behind it. But the problem is everyone's doing it the other way around. And what happens when you're living more from the mind is your ego gets involved, and often the fear side of things pipes up and tells you why you can't do all the things that you want to do. So for example, when I wanted to leave my corporate career and make a career change, when I was making that decision from my mind, of course the answer was, are you crazy? Like, are you out of your mind? You're not, who would leave this position? Who in their right mind would leave this position? So, but when I quieted the voice of my mind and tuned into my heart, the answer was always to make that choice, to go back to school, to just follow my heart. And so, eventually I did, right? So what I like, so in order to build your intuition, here's the thing, your intuition is always speaking to you, but the reality is not many of us are listening to it. And so we want to build this also like a muscle. And the way you start, and the way that I started, was just asking myself questions that were nothing life-threatening was going to happen if I chose chicken over beef, right? Brown rice over quinoa, right? This chocolate bar over that chocolate bar. So start just tuning in with yourself. And then once you've you've settled in with your breath for a couple of deep breaths, then just ask a question like that. That's not gonna be any big deal if you wear the red pants over the blue pants, right? And learn to trust that. And then when you get the big hits, like call so-and-so, or turn left, or don't take that drink, you'll be ready to act on that, and to trust that voice within you, because there is this guide that is guiding you.
So beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Christina Bjorndal. You are amazing. And how can people find you and work with you? I know that you have the Moving Beyond coaching program, because it's a group program. And I know it's hard to, because if you're so busy, people can't maybe get into your office. There's a waiting list, but there's other ways they could work with you.
Yeah, so there is the Moving Beyond coaching program, which is basically a guide through a really deep dive into the 10 steps that I talk about in Beyond the Label. And you can participate in that in the group format, but also just as the webinars are there for you, you can have it on demand access. So that's a great option. There's another option for you to just have 2 calls with me. So there's a few ways to participate in that. And I really hope people check it out, because there's a lot of value there. So it's a wonderful program. So and then basically just getting in touch with me through my website, which is, you'll put my name.
We'll have
your
interview. And I just love that you are not just prescribing medications. It's like, let's look at that root cause. Let's look at multiple aspects. Let's get in touch with your heart. Because even for me, I'm so up here, it was like, wow, I'm going to get in there. And that is our internal guidance system. Mm-hmm. When we trust it, that's we can just know that it's there, and that's getting inside. So thank you so much for sharing your story, and for being hope and inspiration, that if you could get through and go back to school and create all these wonderful things you're bringing into the world, really anyone can. They just need the proper guidance, and listening to this interview is definitely hopefully going to get a launch for these people hurting.
Yes, thank you for what you're doing, and for providing this opportunity. It's so great.
Yeah, I think we just gave people a lot of ways, and I love the last heart exercise is to go in and really recharge your life. Recharge it and look for those things that you're grateful for. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Wow, Dr. Chris Bjorndal, I tell you what, that was so great, especially if you're struggling with depression, anxiety, you've been to this doctor and that doctor, and you're just not getting to the root cause. I hope that she gave you some very basic steps for you to help break through from that emotional pain. And just simple things. Let's challenge yourself. Sleep 7 hours. Cut out sugar. Let's see if you can be under the 36 grams that she was, because you probably should be less than that. But starting to look at those hidden sugars, adding healthier foods in your diet can be so powerful. So thanks for watching the Recharge Your Life series. I love doing this. I hope that it's supporting you. I hope you're feeling inspired and hopefully recharging in your life, that you can make a change and live life to your fullest. And if you love this interview, you're getting great value out of it, and you want to keep these interviews, go ahead and purchase the Recharge Your Life series. It also includes some nice bonuses, as well as a one-on-one private session with me, you and I just connecting like this. And I can hear your story and help you really deconstruct some of those struggles that you're having and help you really free yourself from the emotional pain. All right, stay tuned, and really thank you for watching. I really appreciate you. Have a blessed, beautiful day.